You don't gotta go home, but you can't stay here. And no, I don't wanna be alone.
Hey there YouTube, this is Sunday for Sunday Reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home. And if you don't want to watch any or hear any spoilers, go ahead and click off the video because I'll probably have them in here. Okay, so you've got a story with Mysterio and a B story with Peter's I wouldn't say it's romance. He's trying to get MJ's attention so they can, I guess, become boyfriend and girlfriend. He's playing, obviously, an awkward team, not team, and does a good job at that. I also liked Jake Gyllenhaal's portrayal of Mysterio. I'm going to digress for just a second. I don't know if you have seen Iron Man 3, but there was supposed to be really badass villain in Iron Man 3. Turns out he was just a fake acting dude. That was a really, to me, like a cheap bait and switch. Almost like the old cliche of, oh, everything that you saw in this episode was just a dream. I just woke up. Although that would probably fix Star Wars The Last Jedi if Luke decided to wake up in episode 9 and say, oh, that was just a dream. Okay, now, getting back on topic. We see Mysterio show up as Nick Fury and lady friend, I can never remember her name. She, the lady that was in the comedy series, and I can't remember the name of that show. So they're walking around in this city in Mexico that's obviously been devastated, and all of a sudden this creature shows up, and Mysterio's like, oh, you don't want any part of this. So then they cut away to Peter and his classmates, and they're getting ready for a school trip. So they're going to be going to Europe. So I'm going to start out in Venice and then go to a couple different places. Also, we're supposed to be going to Paris. And before he leaves on his trip, Nick Fury is trying to get a hold of Peter, and he doesn't want to talk to Nick Fury at all, so he keeps sending him a voicemail. And then there's also the, I guess you could call it the C story of Aunt May and Happy. So that's kind of, to me, it's kind of odd because the way they had been playing it up before Infinity War and Endgame was that Iron Man was kind of interested in his mom, which was also weird because Iron Man had Pepper Potts, so it's all kind of convoluted. I think that they could have just wrote a few lines and changed the direction in the other episode or other movies that Iron Man and Aunt May were in, to deflect from any idea of relationship between those two. I have not seen the other Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland, and eventually I'll get around to looking at those as well. So they end up going on their trip, And then Spider-Man, or Nick Fury, encounters Spider-Man in his room, and then he brings him in to their, I guess, their temporary headquarters, and that's where he meets Mysterio, who's going by just a regular name, and he doesn't adopt that name until after a big fight that happens in Venice. So we see Mysterio in action, and then we see Spider-Man not really being able to do anything just due to the fact of the type of creatures that he's facing, which really makes sense because they're supposed to be these big elemental creatures made up. Each one has a different substance. Like there's the air elemental that Mysterio is seen fighting with alongside Nick Fury, and then the one in Venice is a water elemental. So he's fighting that. He can't really do anything. His webs aren't effective against a water creature. And throughout the movie, it's the running joke of the inept teacher who keeps trying to keep the kids out of danger and fails at pretty much every time. But he's always checking up on the kids, so he was played well. I liked him. And then there's the other escort teacher, and he's always blaming witches for everything that's going on, which is slightly humorous. So Spider-Man and Mysterio end up teaming up in Venice, and Spider-Man basically is relegated to helping out because he can't really fight these creatures. And Nick Fury wants Spider-Man to go with him to Prague because they've somehow figured out that's where the next creature is going to be showing up, the elemental of fire. And he's like, nah, I want to do my own thing. I'm trying to be with my potential girlfriend, and if I keep disappearing like this, they're gonna figure out that I'm Spider-Man, especially if I show up in the Spider-Man suit, which kind of makes sense. So Nick Fury arranges it where the school tour gets an upgrade and sends a bus for them. One part of the plot is that Tony had left a gift for Spider-Man, and that's these the same thing that he was wearing in the Infinity War, the sunglasses, and they've got this virtual or augmented reality interface where he talks to a virtual assistant like Jarvis used to be, but now it calls it Edith. And then Spider-Man decides, you know what? Because Tony Stark had left a note, ends up handing off this really powerful augmented reality thing to Mysterio after they defeat the Prague creature, because he doesn't have any confidence in himself. He's like, okay, well, because Nick Fury's coming down on him hard, and Mysterio's trying to befriend him, and he's really hard on himself too. So he's thinking that, well, what Tony Stark meant was for the next Iron Man, which he doesn't think that's going to be himself, and he thinks that Mysterio is going to be the guy that steps up and is going to be the new Iron Man. So watching the film, and they finally defeat this creature, and it's just like, there's no way this movie's over already. They've already gone through this, and boom, done. So the B and the C stories are okay, standard stuff. The A story is another situation where they gonna go, oh, by the way, this is gonna be our twist, our M. Night Shyamalan thing, and it basically just harkens back to Iron Man 3, where Mysterio ends up being the villain in the movie. And his whole goal was to befriend Peter and steal the augmented reality glasses, which gives him access to Iron Man's defensive satellites, which contain a crap ton of these drones. And then it's pretty much just Peter Parker versus the guy that's making the illusions. And at the very end, this is like a mega spoiler, so at the very end, they showed this recording at the, I think it was a bonus clip that Mysterio had recorded and had sent off to the news, and reveals that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. So the thing that he was trying to avoid through the whole movie gets let out by Mysterio. There's also a scene where Peter Parker is building his own Spider-Man suit, which is really reminiscent of the very first Iron Man movie, where he's using the computer system. That's where he's sticking his hand down into the Iron Man thing, but now Spider-Man's doing the same thing, but it's not in the shop. It's on Happy's plane, so he's building it on the plane. That was kind of interesting. Overall, I'm gonna have to give this movie a C. Not necessary to see it in the theaters. Some movies you definitely should see in the movie theater. This is not required for this one. It seemed like it was something definitely missing, and I think it's what happened was when they flipped the Mysterio thing, and they're like, oh yeah, I mean, it's fine if he was going to be the bad guy, but the way they did it, I wasn't really excited about, because when you see the trailer, you're thinking, oh sweet, well, because of this trailer, that explains how they can bring Black Widow back. And I know there's one of the comics that has the Infinite Earths, and I thought this was something that was actually referencing it, and it turns out no, not at all. So one hopeful thing is just thrown away. C story didn't really need to be in there. It was a little bit of comedy from it, and there wasn't a lot of comedy like you see in some of the other Marvel movies. I'm not really sure where to place this on like the Marvel list. I would have to review all of the ones in their catalog just to figure out where to put it. But especially after Infinity War Endgame, it seemed like a really weak entry to put out this close to that release. I would have probably saved it for later on in the year. But if you've seen the movie and you have a different opinion, go ahead and throw it down in the comments. If you liked the review, go ahead and click that like button. And if you want to see more content, go ahead and hit that subscribe bell. And I will see you in the next review.